Okay, let's dive in. We're tackling a really core question for, well, any business, right?
Yeah.
How do you actually get an edge?
Yeah. How do you stand out? How do you succeed when others don't? It's fundamental.
And for that, we're looking at some pretty seminal work. Michael E. Porter, right? His ideas on competitive strategy from back in the 80s.
That's the one, his generic competitive strategies. And it's amazing how relevant these ideas still feel today. We've got some key bits from his work to guide us.
Right, so the plan is, let's really unpack Porter's thinking here. Understand these basic strategies companies use to compete.
And see what insights really jump out. What can you take away from how businesses operate?
Okay, so Porter's central idea, it's all about competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Sounds straightforward, but what's he really getting at?
Well, basically, he says it comes down to one of two things. Either your costs are lower than your competitors,
Okay.
or you offer something different, something unique that customers really value. It's about, performing better than the rest.
So it's not just about, say, having a cool product, it's more structural, something that boosts your overall performance.
Exactly. It's a structural advantage.
Right.
And he boils it down to those two main paths, either being cheaper fundamentally or being different.
Lower cost or differentiation.
Mhm.
Got it. Those are sort of basic ways businesses respond to the competitive pressures around them.
That's right. Those are the main levers. But then he adds another layer, especially in his book, Competitive Advantage. He talks about competitive scope.
Ah, scope. Okay, what does that bring to the table?
Scope is all about, well, how wide you cast your net. Are you going after the whole market globally? Or are you zeroing in on just one little piece of it?
Like a specific type of customer or maybe just one region?
Precisely. So you can have a broad scope aiming wide or a narrow scope focusing really tightly, like a niche player.
Okay, broad or narrow, and Porter says you have to choose this alongside how you compete.
Yes, that's the key insight. You choose your competitive approach, cost, or differentiation, and you choose your scope broad or narrow. It's a matrix, really.
And putting those together, that's where we get his famous generic strategies.
You got it. So low cost plus broad scope, that's cost leadership.
Okay, leading the whole market on cost.
Right. Then differentiation plus broad scope, that's the differentiation strategy, being unique across the whole market.
Makes sense.
Now, if you go narrow scope, you can apply either approach within that niche. So low cost in a narrow market, that's cost focus.
Like being the cheapest option for just one specific customer group.
Exactly. And differentiation in a narrow market, that's differentiation focus, being unique for that specific group.
So cost leadership, differentiation, cost focus, differentiation focus, 4 ways.
Mm.
And Porter's saying these aren't just theories, these are the actual ways companies gain that advantage. Take customers.
Pretty much. He argues these are the fundamental paths to outperforming your rivals. And the material we're looking at today really focuses on those lower cost strategies and the differentiation strategies.
Great. Let's dig into the lower cost side first then. Cost leadership.
Mm.
It sounds like just being the cheapest, but I guess there's nuance there.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about slapping a low price tag on something. It's about having the lowest operational costs in your entire industry, the absolute most efficient producer.
Ah, so the goal is efficiency. And because your costs are so low, you can either price like everyone else and make a huge margin,
Right. Much bigger profits per sale.
or you could deliberately undercut everyone on price, but still make decent money because your costs are rock bottom.
That's the power of it. You build this cost advantage that gives you options and helps you achieve that above average performance. Cost focus is just applying that same thinking, that same discipline, but only within a chosen market segment.
So how do companies actually do this? How do
Yeah.
they get those costs down? The source mentioned a few specific tactics.
Yeah, it lays out several routes. Things like attacking direct and indirect costs, so minimizing wages where possible, maybe refinancing loans to cut interest payments.
Finding cheaper suppliers, I suppose, cheaper materials.
Definitely. Cheaper utilities, even simpler packaging. Every little bit helps.
And efficiency improvements sound key, too.
Hugely important. Things like making sure you don't have cash tied up in stock that's just sitting there, using your assets better, like a restaurant, getting customers in and out quickly to use the tables more.
Operating at scale helps, too, right? Economies of scale.
Oh, absolutely. Producing more usually brings the cost per item down, and it also means really tight control over all parts of the business.
Like managing the supply chain really carefully.
Yes, exactly. Maybe locking suppliers into long-term contracts at fixed prices, or using things like just-in-time inventory so you're not holding loads of stock.
Bulk buying to get better prices. Squeezing suppliers a bit.
All of the above. Anything that trims the fat from the operation.
Okay, sounds like a strong position if you can achieve it. What are the main benefits, the advantages?
Well, the big one is profitability, obviously, higher margins. It also makes you really tough to compete with on price. If rivals try to start a price war, you can often withstand it better.
Because you've got more room to move.
Exactly. And all the money you save on costs. You can reinvest that, maybe expand or develop new products. The source even suggests you might use it to fund differentiation later, though that can be tricky.
Makes sense. But what about the downsides, the risks?
There are definitely pitfalls. Cut costs too aggressively, and customers might start thinking your product is, well, cheap and nasty. Quality perception can plummet.
And sales along with it.
Right. Plus, competitors are always watching. They'll try to copy your cost-saving methods, so the advantage might not last forever. And if you're already running super lean, you don't have much flexibility if things change or unexpected costs pop up. It can also be really hard to pivot to a differentiation strategy later if everyone just thinks of you as the budget option.
That brings us to the Aldi example. They seem like the poster child for cost leadership.
They really are a classic case. They've mastered cost leadership, but crucially, they combine it with what the source calls acceptable quality. It's not premium, but it's good enough for the price.
And the way they achieve those low costs, the list in this source is quite revealing.
It really shows the strategy in action. Things like having a very limited range of products, mostly their own brands.
Saves on complexity and dealing with lots of suppliers.
Exactly. Products often stay in the shipping cartons or on pallets right on the shop floor. Minimal handling, minimal shelving costs.
Smart.
They optimize delivery routes, keep stores relatively small to save on rent and energy, run with minimal staff, maybe just 4 or 5 people in a store.
Wow.
Even things like shorter opening hours compared to rivals and having customers pack their own bags away from the till, it's all about efficiency and stripping out cost at every single step.
It's incredibly focused. Okay, let's flip to the other side then. Differentiation. What's the core idea here?
Differentiation is all about standing out, making your product or service seem different, unique, maybe superior in the eyes of the customer.
Using things like brand name or maybe a unique feature or better service.
Precisely. The goal isn't to be the cheapest. It's to be perceived as special in some way that customers value. You want to be seen as a leader, an innovator.
And the payoff is you can charge more.
That's the main benefit. If customers really value that difference, they're often willing to pay a premium price for it.
And Porter noted, unlike cost leadership, where there's usually only one lowest cost player, you can have multiple differentiators in a market.
Yeah, as long as they're differentiating on different things that different customer groups value, there can be room for several unique players.
Okay. And differentiation focuses just applying that same logic, being unique, but in a smaller niche market.
Correct. Targeting a specific segment with a differentiated offering.
So how do companies pull this off? What are the actual strategies for differentiation according to the source?
Well, one obvious way is through genuinely high-quality products. Maybe they're more durable, more reliable, come with better customer support, or longer warranties.
Makes sense. Quality itself is a differentiator.
Definitely. Another tactic mentioned is multiple branding.
Like the Unilever example with Surf and Omo.
Exactly that. Same company, same basic product category laundry detergent, but they create 2 distinct brands with different marketing, maybe slightly different formulations or scents,
Why do that?
to appeal to different segments of the market. Some people might prefer Surf, others Omo. By having both, Unilever captures a larger total share of the market than they might with just one brand. It maximizes shelf space and overall profit.
Clever. And then there's innovation, R&D.
Absolutely crucial for differentiation. Developing products with unique features that nobody else offers, or spotting an unmet need in the market and moving quickly to fill it.
The source mentions self-driving cars here.
Right, a big R&D push. Companies like Tesla, Google, Uber trying to create something fundamentally new for everyday transport. It's incredibly complex, dealing with unpredictable roads and situations.
Unlike, say, driverless trucks in a mine, which the source notes is already happening.
Exactly. That controlled environment is one thing, but the everyday use case is the big differentiation prize they're chasing through innovation.
The source also talks about supermarkets using private or phantom brands. That sounds like a twist on differentiation.
It really is quite interesting. Instead of just having a basic, cheap-looking store brand, supermarkets like Kohl's are creating their own brands that look and feel quite premium and independent.
Like the examples given Daily Sing Coffee, Kio soaps. They don't scream supermarket-owned brand.
Not at all. They have sophisticated packaging, their own marketing stories. It allows the supermarket to offer unique products you can only get there, differentiate the store itself, and build loyalty, often at a good margin for them. The text mentioned Kohl's aiming for 40% private brands. That's a huge strategic push.
Yeah, and that they already made up over a third of products. That's significant. So advantages of differentiation, what are the main ones?
You can build a really strong connection with customers, foster loyalty. People who love your unique product or brand might stick with you even if prices go up a bit.
Left price sensitivity.
Right. And that ability to charge a premium price can lead to higher revenues. Plus, that customer loyalty can help you build or maintain market share.
And the potential downsides. It can't all be smooth sailing.
No, definitely not. One big risk is imitation. If you create something successful and unique, you can bet competitors will try to copy it, eroding your advantage.
Always looking over your shoulder.
Pretty much. Also, differentiation often costs money upfront R&D, high-quality materials, marketing campaigns. You need to be confident those costs will be outweighed by the benefits, by that premium price you can charge.
And it can take time, right?
Yeah, developing something truly different isn't usually quick. And while you're doing that, customer preferences might shift,
No.
or technology might change, making your planned differentiation less relevant by the time you launch.
There's a timing risk.
For sure. And Porter added a really important caveat here, too. He stressed that even a successful differentiator can't just completely ignore costs. To get that above-average performance, their costs still need to be somewhat in line with competitors. You can't be wildly inefficient just because your product is cool.
That's a great point. You still need operational discipline. Now, Porter had a pretty stark warning for companies that don't choose clearly, didn't he? This stuck-in-the-middle idea.
He did. It's a major warning in his framework. He argued that if a business tries to be both a cost leader and a differentiator across the board but doesn't really excel at either one, they end up stuck.
Meaning they have no real competitive advantage at all.
Exactly. They aren't cheap enough to win on price, and they aren't different enough to command a premium. They just muddle along.
And the result is usually poor performance.
Below average performance, according to Porter. They just can't compete effectively. Now, he did admit later that some businesses can find ways to pursue more than one strategy successfully, maybe through specific innovations.
But it's risky.
Very risky. If the execution isn't absolutely perfect, you're likely to end up stuck. Clarity of strategy is usually safer.
Okay, so if we bring this all together, thinking about strategic management, adapting to change, what's the main takeaway from the source, using Porter's lens?
I think the core message is that these generic strategies provide a fundamental framework for making choices. When a business needs to change direction or decide how it's going to compete, it needs to make a conscious decision. Are we going to base our advantage on lower cost or on differentiation? And how broad or narrow will our focus be?
So it forces clarity on those really big strategic questions.
Yes. It frames the fundamental pathways available.
You know, this deep dive really clarifies things. Understanding cost leadership versus differentiation and that scope dimension really helps you see why companies in the same industry can look and act so differently.
It gives you a lens to analyze why, say, one airline focuses purely on low fares and efficiency, while another focuses on service, lounges, and a premium experience. Different strategies at play.
Absolutely. It explains so much about the competitive landscape.
And maybe here's a final thought for you to mull over based on this framework. If we accept that sustaining cost leadership is hard because everyone's chasing efficiency, and differentiation is hard because unique things get copied or tastes change.
Right. Neither advantage is necessarily permanent.
Exactly. So what does that tell us about the ongoing nature of strategy? Porter's framework highlights the initial choice, but doesn't it also imply that keeping that edge requires constant effort, constant adaptation, maybe even shifting strategy over time, just to stay competitive? Gaining the advantage is one thing, but keeping it, that seems like the real long-term challenge.